Picture this. You're hiking along a quiet, sunlit trail. You step on a dry twig and instantly, the forest reacts like you just pulled the pin on a grenade. A rabbit freezes, its heart pounding visibly against its ribs before rocketing into the brush. A flock of sparrows abandons the canopy in a flurry of panic. A nearby fox spots you, lowers its profile, and melts into the shadows. Meanwhile, you're just standing there in your fleece jacket holding a plastic water bottle, struggling to catch your breath from a mild incline. Why is this happening? Why do wild animals, creatures equipped with razor-sharp claws, lethal venom, antlers, and incredible speed, treat humans like the ultimate biological weapon? We are relatively slow, completely unarmored, and frankly, quite fragile. We'd lose a wrestling match to a chimpanzee and a foot race to a domestic cat. Yet, from the perspective of the forest, you are the Grim Reaper. The reason behind this instinct goes far deeper than modern hunting. And once you understand the mechanics of this fear, you will never view a fleeing animal the same way again. To understand this, we have to rewind the clock. The terror animals feel toward us didn't begin with the invention of the rifle or the bow, or even the forging of metal blades. It started millions of years ago on the prehistoric savannas. Ecologists use a fascinating term called the landscape of fear. This is the reality that wild animals don't just react to a predator when it leaps out of the bushes, they structure their entire existence around the mere possibility of a predator. Where they graze, when they sleep, how they drink from a watering hole, every single daily decision is mathematically calculated to avoid death. And early humans? We were a massive part of that equation. We weren't ambush predators like leopards, and we couldn't outsprint a gazelle. Instead, we used something called persistence hunting. Because humans sweat to cool down, our ancestors could simply jog after prey for hours in the blistering midday sun until the animal literally collapsed from heat stroke and exhaustion. Imagine being a prehistoric herbivore. You run away from a strange, hairless, upright ape, only to look back an hour later and see it still coming. Just a steady, relentless jog. It was the biological equivalent of a horror movie Terminator. The animals that didn't run from us ended up over a campfire. The ones that did survive passed that ingrained generational paranoia into their descendants' DNA. But here is where it gets incredibly humbling. It's not just the prey that fears us. The predators are terrified of us too. In a groundbreaking 2016 study, ecologists proved that humans had become what they call the super predator. Researchers hid speakers in the wild and played various audio clips to passing animals. They played the sounds of barking dogs, roaring lions, and howling wolves. But the sound that caused the most sheer, unadulterated panic? The sound of humans talking.
Hello there.
Just the casual, everyday tone of people reading a book or discussing the news. Apex predators, creatures like mountain lions, wolves, and bears, fled from the human voices faster and more frequently than from any other threat. Think about what that implies. A mountain lion is an undisputed master of its domain, a creature that takes down massive prey with ease. Yet it hears a human clearing their throat and bolts. This is because, over millennia, we hunted the hunters. We drove them away from our livestock, pushed them out of their territories, and showed them that the top of the food chain actually belongs to us. Even apex predators have inherited the historical memory that a human voice means game over. But why are we more scary than a lion or a bear? It boils down to one word: unpredictability. In nature, survival depends on recognizing patterns. A tiger hunts at dusk. A crocodile waits near the riverbank. If you learn the pattern, you survive. But humans shatter every rule in the animal playbook. We hunt in the morning, at noon, and in the dead of night. We hunt from the ground, from trees, from boats, and now with drones from the sky. We use fire, traps, snares, and scopes. We hunt for food, and we hunt for trophies. From wildlife's perspective, we are an unsolvable equation. We don't fit into any natural category. When an animal encounters an unpredictable variable it can't figure out, the brain's only rational response is maximum distance. And then there's the uncomfortable truth. To them, we smell horrifying. In wildlife management, predator urine is often sprayed to keep herbivores away from certain areas. Studies have shown that human scent is just as potent. We are a walking cocktail of synthetic detergents, deodorants, garlic, and natural sweat. To a wild animal with a sensitive nose, your odor is a blaring chemical siren that screams danger, rivaling the scent of a hungry wolf. Now, if this fear is so deeply ingrained, you might wonder, what happens if an animal has never met a human? This is where the first contact stories come in, providing stunning proof that our terrifying reputation is learned, not innate. On isolated islands or places like Antarctica, where humans historically never settled, wildlife exhibits zero fear. When early explorers arrived on islands like Mauritius, they found birds like the dodo that would literally walk right up to their boots to inspect them. Sailors often wrote in their journals that these animals were stupid, but they weren't stupid. They just hadn't been introduced to the human threat yet. Today, researchers in Antarctica still have to actively gently push curious penguins out of their way because the birds will waddle right up to their camera gear and try to peck at their zippers. Without a history of human hunting, the fear response simply doesn't exist. It proves that nature's default setting isn't to run from us. However, where we do exist, our presence alters the physical world in profound ways. When wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone National Park, the elk stopped grazing in the open valleys because they were afraid. As a result, those valleys grew back, trees flourished, and rivers stabilized. Fear alone changed the physical landscape. Humans cast a landscape of fear that is 1,000,000 times larger. A massive 2018 global study found that the mere presence of humans is forcing the animal kingdom to work the night shift. Mammals across 6 continents, from wild boars to antelopes to bears, are becoming increasingly nocturnal. They are fundamentally changing their biological clocks, sleeping during the day and foraging at night, simply to avoid running into us. We aren't just apex predators, we are a global ecological force dictating when the rest of the planet is allowed to be awake. You might be thinking, well, the raccoon eating my garbage isn't scared of me at all. And you'd be right. This is a phenomenon called habituation. When highly intelligent urban adapters like foxes, crows, or raccoons live near us and realize we aren't constantly hunting them, they run a cost-benefit analysis. Their brains slowly downgrade our threat level to conserve energy. Why flee from the primate when the primate drops delicious pizza crusts? Crows even take it a step further. They memorize individual human faces. They will monitor you, remember if you were mean to them, and literally teach their flock to harass you for years. They've replaced fear with calculated surveillance. But what about when animals attack? If they fear us so much, why do shark bites or bear maulings happen? Almost invariably, these are not predatory attacks. They are defensive. An animal attacks when it feels cornered, when it is protecting its young, or when its habitat has shrunk so much that it is pushed into a panic-inducing proximity to humans. They attack because they are terrified and feel they have no other way out. Ultimately, this leads us to a heavy realization. The terror wildlife feels toward us is completely justified. We have terraformed the earth, caused widespread extinctions, and fundamentally altered the natural order. When an animal runs from you, it is making a statistically accurate calculation based on thousands of years of human history. But this also provides a hidden beacon of hope. Because this fear is learned, it can be unlearned. We're seeing it happen right now. In marine sanctuaries where fishing has been banned for decades, the fish no longer flee from scuba divers. In parts of Africa, mountain gorillas that were historically decimated by poachers have been slowly, carefully habituated to tolerate the presence of respectful researchers and ecotourists. They didn't forget how to be afraid. They were just given new evidence that humans in that specific context are safe. The landscape of fear doesn't have to be permanent. We spent millennia earning our reputation as the scariest monsters in the dark. But with our unmatched adaptability and intelligence, we are the only species capable of choosing a different path. We have the power to rewrite the rules of the forest, to become stewards rather than nightmares, and eventually to build a world where the animals no longer feel the need to run.